Hi, and welcome to Work in Progress with Nicole Engelmann. This is the podcast where I speak with other business owners about their journey, the wobbles, the wins, and all the challenges and everything in between. And today I'm joined by Rachael Welford. She's an EFT therapist. The list is long. Hold on. She's an EFT therapist, gong practitioner, community builder, business coach, and podcaster. Hi, Rachael.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's lovely to have you as well. I guess we're just kind of jumping in. Like, tell us about your journey. What has it been like? What's your story?
It has been a bit of a winding road, this business journey of mine, I guess. Not particularly glamorous beginning. I used to work a really fast-paced London life in events and media in action sports. So I used to primarily work in snowboarding, skiing, and BMX. But I also did a bit of skate and surf, but yeah, they were my primary things, like BMX and snowboarding. And then in 2014, I hit, I guess, rock bottom, if you want to kind of call it that. And that was a real turning point for me, where I burnt out at work and got diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and later PTSD from a trauma that I had. And my whole life fell apart, really. I loved my job. I really loved my life. I was always going to events and premieres and different things, and it was like really exciting and fun life. And then suddenly at 32, I was sort of bedridden at home, living with my parents again, having to be looked after because I literally couldn't brush my teeth. Like, it was, bad. I think a lot of people talk about anxiety and depression now, like, oh, I'm a bit depressed, or, it was life-threatening levels of anxiety and depression, which wasn't fun. And so then over the years from that, I kind of rebuilt my life and my business from scratch, I guess. And I learned so many incredible healing tools on my journey that I just thought, I can't not share these with the world. So I retrained as an EFT practitioner. I did a sound therapy course, meditation teacher course, and just completely changed everything and set up originally Welford Wellbeing was my company, and I was doing Reiki as well. I was an energy healer at the start. So that's kind of where I started, and over the years it's developed and grown and been amazing. I've been so lucky to work with massive brands like Spotify and TikTok. I've been covered in the press, places like Stylist and The Times and all different things, and launched my podcast as well, Things I Wish I'd Known, into the top 5% globally, which has been incredible to have so many listeners for that podcast. And just more recently launched Working Well Club. So yeah, it's been a bit of a winding road, and a lot of it has been unfortunately dictated by either my mental health or my physical health. Yeah, it's been a journey. Messy, exciting, beautiful journey.
A work in progress.
Yeah, work in
To go back
progress,
and
exactly.
it's always interesting when you kind of have to summarize your journey and then actually think, well, I've gone through this, this, and this, and obviously now I'm compressing it to this little 2-minute thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just a 2-minute journey.
Exactly. The last 12 years or 13 years
Yeah,
pumped into
exactly.
one. So how did you find the transition from being employed to building your own business? What was that like for you, especially during the burnout depression kind of phase of your life?
Do you know what? I was I'm going to use this word for me. I would never use this for anyone else. I was crazy. Like, I was really unwell. I genuinely thought at one point I was going to be sectioned, and I would like beg my mum like not to have me sectioned, and she was like, "You're fine. You're not going to be sectioned. It's okay," kind of thing. So I was super unwell. And I think when I started to get better, and I was in therapy and I was doing lots of different things. So meditating a lot, doing EFT tapping, seeing a therapist, doing trauma therapy, nutrition. It was basically like a massive overhaul of all the different areas of my life. And I think if I wasn't that mental, I probably wouldn't have done it in the way that I'd done it, because I was so excited about going back to work. This is how the business started. I was so excited about going back to work. I couldn't wait. I was just like, yes. And I went back to the office and I was full of almost like joy and excitement. I couldn't wait to see all my colleagues. I couldn't wait to reconnect with my clients. Like, I think I'd been off. I find it really hard to remember back to that time. It's either like 6 months or nearly a year. I can't remember, but I was off sick for a long time. And when I got back in the office, literally immediately, as soon as I walked into the office, I thought, I can't be here. This job is going to kill me. And I sat at my desk and I remember sitting there and just looking at my computer screen and just being like, I need to get out of here. I'm going to have a panic attack. I just need to get out of here. And I went into I don't know, the CEO, director, whatever, went into his office and just went, I'm so sorry, I can't do this. I quit. And I had no money in my bank account because I'd obviously been off sick all this time. I think I had about £500 or £600 in my bank account at that point, and my rent was due in like 3 weeks, and my rent was like £750.
Mm.
And I just thought, I can't do this. But at the time, I'd been meditating a lot. When I say a lot, like 3 hours a day, every day in silence for the last like 6 months prior. And when you meditate that much, something magical happens. And I swear I could almost like see. Now, for those like spiritual people, they're not going to think I'm crazy, but some people think it all sounds a bit woo woo. But I feel like I could see that if I just left, everything was going to be fine. And if I stayed, it really wasn't. And so I just quit on the spot, left, and then thought, I'm going to be a Reiki healer. That's what I'm going to do. And it was like, that was it. That it was that simple. And then, you know, almost the next day I set up a Instagram or whatever and was just like, let's go.
Yeah.
You got 3 weeks to make some money. Let's go, And that was that. And I just kind of went for it. So yeah, it was, I forgot the original question now, but it was
That's
definitely.
fine. Yeah, it was about like how you found going from like employed to having your own
Yeah.
business, and that's
Terrifying, I think, would be a really good explanation. And still sometimes I find it terrifying. It's I don't think anybody that works for themselves hasn't ever at least had one point where they've craved that security of, a regular salary. In all the years that I've been doing this now, because I was full-time in my company from 2018. Because I did a little bit of like freelancing and things like that, just to kind of bootstrap the business while it built. I've never not been able to cover my bills. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always, even when it's really tight to the wire and you're thinking like, something always seems to pop up, a new client comes out of nowhere, or suddenly you get, an offer of some kind of work and it just works. It's magical, really.
Yeah, I think sometimes the disguise of security with an employed job is an illusion as well, because you can get made redundant from one day to another. It's not that secure.
Absolutely.
If they decide they don't need you anymore, they don't like your face or whatever, they can get rid of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed. Do you know the one thing that I do miss though from paid employment? Paid holiday.
Yeah, that is
That's
nice.
the only thing that I think I wish I still had paid holiday. But then, when you're like, do you though? Because you want to go to your boss and go, please, sir, can I have off these dates? And they go, no, you need
Yeah.
to take your holiday here or whatever. It's like, no thanks.
And
I
you
don't
can
want to
only
ask
do a
anyone.
certain amount of days, and you can't do that, and you can't do
No, I
this.
don't want to
Yeah.
ask permission anymore to have time off. And also, like Christmas or whatever, they're like, oh, that counts to your annual leave. Well, it's not my fault you shut the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy that I made the transition. And I think for anyone listening, if you're thinking about it, I highly recommend doing it. But it's definitely a journey, a non-linear
Yeah.
journey.
Definitely. Did you find clients quite quick, or did that take a long time? Because obviously you went quite quick from employment to fuck this shit, I'm setting this up now.
Do you know what? I really like, one of the things I keep talking to my partner about actually is like my like life partner rather than my business partner, is how I really want to get back into that kind of level of meditation, because I swear to God, people used to ask me like, what's your marketing plan? And I was like, I just sit in meditation and I'm like, bring me clients. And it would always work. And it sounds mental. I mean, obviously I was doing other things, you promote yourself the best that you can. But often, especially if I was really in the, can you swear on this podcast? I don't know.
Yeah, I just did it.
Okay, if you're really in the shit, I would just be like, if you want me to continue doing this, bring me clients because I need money in this kind of existence. So bring it to me. And then things would just drop in my lap. And the most crazy one that I ever had, and this has never happened to me before or since, but I remember like very clearly right at the beginning, and anyone who's ever started their own business will have had times like this, when you're just like, oh my God, how am I going to make this work? And my rent was due. And I think it was something like £700 or £800 I had to make. And I had about 48 hours left. And when you're like, oh my God. And where I was living at the time was a bit of a sketchy, it was brilliant, but it was a bit sketchy, like the flat that I was in. And we had to pay our rent in cash, and you had to put the cash on the kitchen table, and then the landlord would just let himself in and take the cash from the kitchen table. Sketchy as hell, very, very London, but the rent was cheap. So for the area. So I was like, right, how the hell am I going to do this? And I remember just sitting in meditation, and I was like, please, I don't really, still don't know if I believe in like God per se, but that kind of thing of like, I'll believe in you forever, Jesus, if you just bring me to let me pay my rent. I can't not have the money on the kitchen table when the landlord comes here tomorrow. And randomly, a client that I already had messaged me and said, at the time I wasn't doing packages or anything, I was just doing like one-off sessions. And they were like, would you do me a deal if I booked a package of sessions? Do you do packages? And I was like, sure. And then I just put together a package off the top of my head that was the exact amount that I needed. And she was like, okay, cool. And she just backs me the money immediately. And I was
That's
like, oh my
amazing.
God. And when you just think, so there's so many situations like that where things have just come out of the woodwork and everything always works out, but it's sometimes can be to the wire.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I had something similar actually earlier this year, where basically in April it's like, well, if nothing else comes in, I don't know how to pay rent. To the point
Mm,
where I was crying to others and stuff like that. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Do I have to pack it all in? And that's
yeah.
it. And then literally since May, I haven't had a proper day off because I've been so busy.
So busy. Yeah. And that's how it does just flow like that sometimes. And I think, when I had long COVID, which was like 4.5 years, I remember thinking like how lucky I was that I was working for myself, because I could really structure and build my work around my health. Whereas if I'd have been working full time, I think I would have had to gone off sick, because I wouldn't
Yeah,
have been able to deliver what they wanted me to deliver in the way they would have wanted me to deliver it.
yeah,
But because I worked for myself, I was able to just shift clients and be able to, do a client session, then have a proper rest for an hour or two, and then do another session. And then, it's like actually I was able to kind of structure my business around my health and things like that. And I think that's the joy of having your own business, isn't it? Like, yeah, okay, sometimes financially things can get a bit hairy or worrying or whatever, but you really do have so much freedom. And usually, and I hate to admit this to myself, but usually if you're doing the things that you need to be doing, the money's not usually a problem. It's when you're like not doing some of the boring stuff that you don't really want to do, and then it's like, okay, no, I've got to got to do it now.
yeah, I totally get that. And that's the thing as well, that I guess also because you work in a well-being space, people are a bit more understanding as well, right? When you say, actually, I'm working through this, like long COVID, there
Yeah,
is
I've
this more understanding, right? Because otherwise, why would they even be into well-being if they don't even?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it depends. I'm very, very lucky, especially my like one-to-one clients, people that are in my membership, things like that, like incredible. But you'd be surprised with some of the more corporate, because I go, it's very interesting how everybody loves to do Mental Health Awareness Day and talk about, suicide prevention or whatever. And we've got our mental health first aiders, But then when it comes to the actual reality of, I feel like there's a lot actually across the wellbeing and mental health space. It's kind of like, it's okay as long as your anxiety presents as something cute, or like your ADHD or your neurodiversity or whatever. It's like there's an acceptable range. Like, you're allowed to be depressed if it shows up as like you're just a bit tired and you're a bit melancholy, and it's very like sort of like 90s cigarette aesthetic, and you're just kind
Mm.
of, a bit melancholy or whatever, but it's kind of like an aesthetic. But if you're literally suicidal, or you're, you know, talking in tongues or whatever, that's not an acceptable level.
Mm.
And I do think that even when you've got issues with your health, and I'll try and phrase this, and I don't know if this is going to come out right, so everyone please take it with the intention that it's meant. None of us have control over our health to a certain extent. But it's kind of like, if you have promised to deliver something and you can't deliver it, it's okay for people to be upset about that.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you should make yourself ill to deliver it, for example, but it's also okay for somebody to be annoyed if, let's say, for example, they've booked a session and my fatigue was really bad and I've had to cancel it or reschedule it. It's actually okay for that person to be like not so accepting, because maybe they needed that session as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of see it from both perspectives, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And also the corporate side of things. I've had this discussion before with a few people that it's almost like the mental health awareness month and all those kind of things. It's a marketing tool. It's like, look, we are really into this, and we're really, work with us because we're into
Yeah.
this and we're really advocating for it. But actually it's just like, this is a marketing tool. Are we
Yeah,
actually really
absolutely.
behind what we're saying? That's the other side of
And
it.
that I've found that sometimes I don't get booked for things because I will talk about because I do talks about burnout and stress management and all that kind of stuff, and I talk about culture.
Hmm.
Because, you can't be, on the one hand, saying to people, don't burn out, like, take rest and whatever. There's one company actually that I work with who I really respect. They actually have like a room in their offices that anyone can go to whenever they want, which has like these meditation screens with like Calm app and all of that on it. And you can literally blackout blind the room and you can sleep in there, you can meditate in there, you can do whatever. And it's like, having companies that have those types of spaces and they genuinely back what their culture backs what they're saying is really amazing. But it is actually crazy how many companies are like, oh my God, I can't believe everyone's so burnt out. And then they're like messaging them on a Saturday at 6 p.m. and expecting them to answer, or, at 5 p.m. when they're just about to finish work, going, can you just quickly, and they're in the office till 9 p.m. every single night. And it's
Mm.
like, you can't expect people to be well and look after themselves if you don't promote a culture of, taking your lunch break, eating a nutritious diet, getting sleep. Like, one of the things that this company that I work with was sharing was, they have a lot of parents and stuff, and they're like, so, why can't you go and sleep for an hour on your lunch break if you've got a baby at home or whatever, or you're not getting enough sleep for whatever reason, or if you've got an illness or fatigue or whatever, you can go and sleep in the room on your break. Like, that makes sense to them as a company to have a space to be able to do that. And people use it. When I go there, it's annoying sometimes because I feel bad. Sometimes I have the room for like sessions and I have to kick people out, and I have to go and be like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, there's a session in 5. I've got to wake you up, and you feel bad. But it's like brilliant that they are actually, within the culture, they're practicing what they preach. And I feel like there's so many companies that, like you say, them. And I think also a lot of the companies that, I think some of them don't give a crap and they're just doing it for marketing, but I think some of them don't actually even realize the disconnect between
Mm.
the culture of what, of what they're, inviting people to do or allowing people to do, and the actual, they think, oh, look, we've got mental health first aiders. We're doing all the tick boxes, aren't we great? But 9 times out of 10, it's more the flexible working hours, allowing people to, actually saying to people, you need to take your lunch break. It's your break time, at 5 o'clock, tools down, go home, see you tomorrow. The work will
Yeah.
always be there. It's like actually having that culture built into a company to support the stuff, because they're often, they're paying for this stuff, but
Yeah.
then the culture doesn't support it. It kind of, doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. There's a disconnect where they think they're doing all the things, but actually, how they run the whole thing or the culture of the people is a whole other
Yeah.
thing. In terms of, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, like long COVID. I'm
Mm,
guessing that was a big challenge in your business,
it was
or
awful.
still is, in a
I
sense. Like,
wouldn't wish that illness on my worst enemy. It's this is gonna sound really mental. I was definitely more, well, no, I don't know. I think I'd rather have a mental health issue than a physical health issue.
mm,
I feel like with the mental health issue, when I started to implement the things that should help me to feel better, so changing my nutrition, sleeping more, meditating, doing tapping, doing trauma therapy, like all of that stuff. I'm not saying it was easy. It was really, really, really hard, especially when the depression was really bad. But the thing is, it's almost like when you're that depressed, you literally don't care. Like you don't care about anything and even care if you're alive or not. So there's kind of this like apathy about it that kind of almost makes it bearable. But with the long COVID, it was just like being trapped in your own body, and your body just wouldn't do what just basic functions that you needed it to do. And sometimes no matter what you did, like I was on a really strict anti-inflammatory diet. I was sleeping for like 10, 11 hours a night, going to bed at like PM and getting up at like 9 a.m. sometimes. It was like just really looking after myself, taking all the supplements, getting acupuncture, getting osteo, whatever it was, doing nervous system exercises. Like I was doing like everything I could think of that would heal me, and there was no progress.
mm.
Sometimes
So,
you'd be worse.
yeah. Is it So obviously we've all heard of long COVID, and I think most people just think it's fatigue. But can you explain what it's like? Like
I
what
had
are the things
loads
that you had to battle with?
Yeah, I had loads of different symptoms, and I think one of the most complicated things about long COVID is it seems to affect a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. So I never had the like taste and smell thing, for example, whereas I know somebody who never had fatigue and they just still don't have taste or smell, So it's like there's definitely a spectrum of different people. It was extreme fatigue. I don't think, because I would have like people around me and they'd say, "Oh, we all get a bit tired," and and you just like make me want to pull my own hair out. But the fatigue was like debilitating. You couldn't sometimes, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. There was my partner and I went on holiday, and I didn't. This was when I didn't realize really how to manage it. Went on holiday, and I think it was the second day of holiday. I literally couldn't lift my head off the pillow, and he was like, you know, trying to get me out of bed basically, and I physically couldn't lift my head on the pillow. I just had to lay down and that was it, and I couldn't even lift my head. And then when I had to get out of bed, I was so dizzy. I had to go to the bathroom, like hold on to the wall to like walk to the bathroom. So it's really can be very extreme. I also used to get like pretty bad pain. So like I don't know if anyone listening has had like really bad flu, like proper flu, and that kind of like where your bones hurt, like inside of I don't know how to describe it really. It's like
Mm,
almost like a pain inside of your bones or inside of your joints. And I used to get that really badly, like in my hips and my back and my legs. And I would get this thing that I just nicknamed concrete legs because I didn't know what else to call it. So it would just be like my legs felt so heavy that I couldn't really walk. Gastro stuff. So not being able to eat anything, or I would immediately evacuate. And so then you don't want to leave your house because you're terrified that, if you eat anything, you're gonna, you know, just crap
Evacuate.
your pants, crap your pants, basically. So that was pretty hard to deal with, and like nausea, headaches. Trying to think of all my symptoms now. There was some other really weird symptoms like weird sweating, like, not really being hot, but just sweating, very elevated heart rate, low oxygen levels. Quite a lot of the time, my oxygen level would be like 93% or something like that, 94%. It should be like 98, 99. So yeah, it was a lot. And a lot of the time, you feel this is going to you feel like you're making it up,
Hmm.
because it feels like, how can my body not be able to do really basic things? And then it wasn't until, and I'm going to give them a shout out actually, because and there's a company called Visible, and that made a massive difference to me. I'm not like affiliated with them or anything. It really, really helped, because you get this armband. I'm still wearing it now, my little armband, and it links to an app in your phone, and it measures your heart rate and your heart rate variability. And what I learned from that, which I had no idea, because everybody talks about pacing for fatigue. And I thought I was pacing because I was, sleeping loads, and I would make sure that I laid down a lot, throughout the day. But I didn't realize that certain activities like washing my hair, for example, was like a massive high energy activity, getting dressed. So what pacing actually meant for me, at the beginning was, say, for example, to start my day, I would lay in bed, do nervous system exercises and a breathing exercise, just to like help my body to wake up and get my nervous system to be balanced. Then I would go and have a shower. And then as soon as I'd had a shower, I would lay on my bed for 20 minutes. And then I'd
Hmm.
wait for my heart rate to go down, because when I had a shower, my heart rate would jump to like, I don't know, sometimes 140, 160 beats per minute, which is the same as if you're
Gosh.
like running or something like that. And
Yeah.
then I'd lay on my bed for like 20 minutes, wait for my body to recover, and then I would stand up and get dressed, and then I would lay down again for 20 minutes, and then I would do my makeup, and then I would lay down again for 20 minutes, and then I would like go and have breakfast, and then I'd lay down. So it's like actually showing you that your body needs to recover after every single activity. And those activities will be different for everybody. But that's why it was kind of a powerful tool for me, because I had no idea that, essentially having a shower, washing my hair, cooking food, standing up. So I got a chair a lot of the time and would sit down when I was cooking and things like that. It's like pacing when you've got an illness like that looks very different to what you might think.
And how was that like in running your business? Were you even able to in the beginning to continue running your business?
I mean, there was a period of time where I had to go on like government support, if I'm not completely honest, because I couldn't work properly. So I was still doing my club, and I still had a couple of one-to-one clients, and that was manageable. So that was fine. But I couldn't do gong baths. I couldn't do like so many things. And even now, like recently, this is where the Working Well Club came from, was essentially every time I would do a gong bath event, even as I was like much, much, much better. So this is sort of more recent. It would still use like a day or 2 days worth of energy in like an hour that I was running an event. So it just didn't seem sensible.
Hmm.
You just have to make these decisions. But yeah, I think what I did, which I didn't realize that I did at the time, if you know what I mean, because I think you're just in survival mode. And I was always very hopeful that I would heal myself. I didn't ever think I'm going to be stuck with this forever. I always, a bit Delulu is the Salulu with everything. I'm always like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But I think something that I did that I didn't realize was I really started to focus in on what are my needle movers, and what like what's the most important things for me to have a like to keep the business running, what's the most important things, and then just very much giving myself grace outside of that to not worry about anything, and just you know if it if the business dies, the business dies. Like, it sounds awful, but I
Yeah, but
think when
you
your
need to
health,
live, right?
Absolutely. And if I do, the real fear that I had was I was in a lot of support groups, and I think anyone who's ever had a chronic illness or has got a chronic illness probably resonates with this, of like just being able to talk to people and not have to explain it, to not have to be like, it's not just tiredness. It's like, and it's this constant overthinking of always having to plan like 4 days ahead of myself, because some days you would have enough energy to do stuff, but but if you did too much, you wouldn't actually notice until 2 or 3 or 4 days later when you have a massive crash and then you're bedridden. So it's very hard to manage, because it's not like an immediate, if I do this, I get tired straight away. It's like sometimes you can overdo it by, let's say, for example, I would never have washed my hair and worked in the same day, ever. So it was like I always had to wash my hair on a Saturday or a Sunday, because I would never be able to wash my hair and work. And then so you start to really manage, and things like these little jumpsuits that I wear all the time now, it's because I could pull it on and be dressed without having to put on, it's going to sound really dramatic, but like without having to put on underwear, without having to put on, I could be dressed without like all the different steps of normally getting dressed, doing up buttons, pulling on trousers, pulling on, it was like you just have to pull one thing on and you're dressed and presentable. I changed my makeup routine so it was easier to do and less. I wouldn't shower every day. If I wasn't seeing people, I wouldn't shower or wash my hair sometimes for, I would wash my hair once a week max. So it's like you start to, and cooking and things like that, you start to go, okay, I'm not going to buy vegetables. I'm going to buy frozen vegetables because they're already cut. So then I don't have to cut things up. I can just grab a handful of frozen vegetables out the freezer. And a lot of the food that I would cook for myself would be a frozen chicken breast and frozen vegetables. And I put in one side of the air fryer and the other side of the air fryer. And then I've got a relatively healthy meal, but I can sit down while it's cooking. Like it's
Mm.
all these things that you don't realize that you start to really have to manage so that you have enough energy to deliver what you need to in your business. And it's like you can't have, top level hygiene and top level fitness and top level everything, because you need to decide, if I only have this amount of energy, where am I going to expend it today? And
Mm.
sometimes that would need to be like, right, okay, I need to expend everything into my business today. And sometimes it would be, I'm not working at all today.
Mm.
It's just, yeah, a real balance.
Yeah, I can't imagine how hard that was, especially because it's such a long time as well. It's not just like a couple of months, it was years.
Yeah, it's pretty, now that I look back, it's pretty crazy. And for anyone listening to this, if you're struggling with the same thing, this is going to sound nuts, but please, please, please look into nicotine therapy.
Yeah, you told me about that.
It honestly has changed my life. Like that and acupuncture, I think. I mean, there's loads of things that I've done, and I do think it's a journey, and there's lots of different things that have helped me at different parts. But I think the AIP diet, nicotine patches, and the acupuncture are probably the three things that made the biggest, quickest shift. But please don't do what I did and just whack on any old nicotine patch, because I was so ill. Start very low, like 3 milligrams or less a day. Just as a caveat, because I didn't read all the stuff properly. I'm a bit gung-ho sometimes of using myself as a guinea pig.
Go the extreme.
Yeah.
To wrap the first part up, actually, so I usually asked two questions. One is, what would you tell starting out Rachel with the knowledge you have today? Like anything she should do differently or do exactly the same? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I think what I did very well at the beginning, and I probably struggle more with now actually, is I was very good at sharing my story and my journey and building community, like you say. And I think at the beginning, I was so excited just to share all the tools that I, because it was all new and fresh. Back in 2017, 2018, that was pre even like Me Too movement. So no one was talking about mental health and well-being back then. Nobody knew what EFT was. Nobody knew what Reiki was. not many people were, like, I feel like now the conversation has moved on so much. Like, mental health first aiders didn't exist. People didn't really, like, now I feel like the conversation around mental health is so much more open, and people generally will say, like, openly, I've got ADHD, or I've got depression, I've got anxiety, or I struggle with my mental health, and we can have that conversation. But back then, nobody was having that conversation. And so I felt like, sharing my story on social media, talking to people about this stuff was really powerful. Whereas now, I think I struggle a bit more because it sometimes feels like it's so diluted and it's so noisy, that space. And also with, I don't know what's happened to the well-being and the spiritual industry. I feel like it's become a caricature of itself. It's kind of like,
It's very commercialized.
yeah, and just like, I don't know, dare I say it, manipulative.
Hmm.
I feel like there's definitely a lot of, manipulation of vulnerable people, a lot of the time, and people that are very good at marketing that maybe aren't so good at the delivery of what they're saying they can deliver, because they're very
Hmm.
good at marketing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so sometimes now I feel like, am I just adding to the noise? Am I just, whereas I think at the beginning, so I would definitely recommend focusing on like your story and your community, because I think that's definitely key to building anything. Systems. I've always been quite good on my systems, and I think people run your systems, systems run your business. And even if you're a solopreneur, like, having things that are like ready there for you. So like, getting some headshots done, for example. Nicole's very good, guys. But if you get your photos done or whatever, even if you don't get professional headshots, because I couldn't afford to at the beginning, like a lot of people, I did a photo shoot for myself with a ring light, at home, and with a like little clicky thing. But then I took those photos and put them somewhere so they're easy to find. And then I had a bio that I'd written, and that was easy to find, so that, if you do ever get a last minute press thing or whatever, everything's there. You don't have to rewrite your bio every single
Hmm.
time you want to talk about yourself. And I think especially now with like the way social media is and everything else, having those systems in place so that you know what you're talking about, you know what you're posting, you've got your B-roll footage all ready to go, you've got your photos all ready to go, so that you can quickly knock things together if you need to. But also having, systems and strategies for like your accounts and dealing with, clients and things, so that you're not constantly having to reinvent the wheel when you could just be, repeating something that's already there.
Hmm.
So I definitely think I did that well, and I continue to kind of try and do. I mean, obviously, anybody with ADHD, it's like sticking to a system is lol.
Yeah.
But I do try my hardest to kind of be on top of those things, and put, again, even if you do have ADHD or whatever, it's like finding a menu or a, visual reminders so that you don't forget to do things, all of that kind of stuff, so that it's in
Hmm.
place. What
Brilliant.
else would I recommend? I think that's, yeah, I think definitely systems and community, like build your community and system. And don't be afraid to sell. Actually, this is a key one. Do not be afraid to sell, because the times in my business where I've really lost my confidence or questioned my ability is when I'm not confident in selling. And actually, we think that selling is like really icky and a bit like, and it's so like awkward and embarrassing to be like, oh God, do you want to work with me? Because it's a bit like being in the playground at school and being like, do you like me? Do you want to be my friend? Do you want to play a game with me? And so the little inner child can sometimes come up and be like, oh, I'm not going to put myself out there like that because it feels really scary. But in reality, we fucking love to buy, don't we?
Hmm.
Like, how much do you love to buy stuff? I love buying stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, actually, if I'm somewhere and I need something and someone's, selling to me something that I need, like, I love buying that stuff. Do you know what I mean? That's amazing. Like, if I'm paying for a coach, or I'm in a mastermind, or I'm doing whatever, and they're delivering what they've promised and I'm getting results, like, I love that. Take my money. take it, you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like we forget that from the other side. So it's like remembering and reminding yourself consistently that you are good enough, you can do this, what you provide is bloody brilliant, and that actually people love to buy, and what you're doing, if you've got integrity, which I hopefully comes across, but I have, you know, strong integrity, and I really care about my clients, and I really care about like the delivery of my services, and making sure that people get what they're paying for or more, right? And so if you're that type of person, it's almost a disservice to not sell because other people are selling. And so if they have the
Yeah.
option to buy from you, who's got integrity and is going to deliver something amazing, a beautiful experience, a incredible photo shoot, you know, whatever your product is, whatever, it's like that, if you don't sell that, they're going to buy it from someone who's not as good as you. And so it's a disservice to yourself and your potential clients if you're not selling well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's, sorry, I got on my high horse a little bit there.
No, it's fine. I totally get that. We can get carried away. That's fine.
Yeah.
Last thing, really quick. What's one thing you're proud of in your business or your life? Doesn't matter.
Do you know what? One thing I'm proud of is that I'm still going. Like, I feel like sometimes I look at, you know, I'm 43 now as of recording this, and sometimes I look at my life and I think I'm not really where I thought I'd be. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're a kid and you're growing up, you think, wow, when I'm in my 40s, I'm going to be X, Y, Z, whatever you thought. I don't really know what I thought I'd be doing, but I didn't, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm not as far ahead as I would like to be. Like I don't own a property and I don't, you know, like, but then I think, oh my God, the amount of that I've been through and the amount of trauma work I've had to do. You know, I spent 10 years in trauma therapy. Like to be able to turn it around, to go from being literally bedridden to having panic attacks so bad that I couldn't leave my house, that I was literally like agoraphobic. And sometimes when I look back, I kind of almost forget how bad that was because it seems so far removed now from where I am with my mindset and everything now. But it's like, oh my God, you literally healed yourself of anxiety and depression and panic attacks. And like, I used to not be able to get on buses. I used to be able to not leave my house. You know, it was really, really, really bad. And I came through all of that. And just when everything was like amazing and my business was actually like smashing it, I was doing really well. And I built it from scratch. I got hit with long COVID. And then I've just spent, you know, another nearly 5 years trying to heal myself from that. And it's still, I'm on, you know, that is ongoing. So it's like, oh my God, that's nearly 15 years of my life that was essentially spent in therapy, paying for therapists and healers and, you know, whatever, and all of that stuff. So no wonder you've not been able to, you know, have a secure kind of financial base or whatever, because you've literally spent, you know, 15 years, and you think if I'm 43, it's the equivalent of being like in my 20s still.
Well,
Sometimes I think it's giving yourself grace and just being proud of like sometimes the success, you know, because often I think we all have this kind of thing of success of like, I don't know, maybe having a partner, and I don't think I want to have children. So for me, like, you know, getting married and having kids and stuff like that isn't a thing, but I know for a lot of people that's a thing, and like owning property and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just like, I live in the most expensive city in the world. Like, you know, and I've spent 15 years of my life with some sort of mental or physical illness. So of course I'm not going to be where some of my peers are who haven't had to deal with those things. And even like trying to get diagnosed with ADHD, you know, that's now I'm 5 years into that journey of just trying to get a diagnosis or whatever. It's like the support for certain illnesses, ailments, etc., is not there. And so it's that, yeah, feeling proud that I've done that and I'm still here, and I'm so lucky that I didn't off myself because that was an option. That was definitely an option a few times.
yeah.
You know, so the fact that I'm actually here and feel happy every day and get to move my body now. I went for a run. I went for my first run the other day. You know, it's like, okay, maybe I'm going to get back to my level of fitness that I want, back to my level of health that I want, and I still have a business, right? And I've done that by myself. no financial backing or whatever. It's like, yeah, actually, I'm really proud of that,
Yeah, and that's success as well, resilience in itself,
you know?
right?
And
Yeah,
what the hell? It's so easy, especially when you've got your own business and you probably everyone else's algorithm is the same as mine. And it's just constant bombardment of like 6-figure this and 7-figure that and 8-figure this. And it's like, you know, maybe I want a happy, easy life and multi 5 figures is fine. Maybe I just want to take a 3-hour lunch break every day, or like I only want to work 4 days a week and rest for the other three. And maybe that's success, you know? It
exactly.
doesn't always have to look like what other people think it looks
Yeah,
like,
the
you know?
property, the money, and all those kind of things.
And
It's
do you
what
know what?
you're happy with.
Right, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like, do I want my
Exactly.
own property? Of course I do. I'd love to have my own place, whatever. And it's like that I trust that that will happen, but just because it's not happening on the timeline that I expect it to happen on doesn't mean that I'm failing, you know? It's like actually, like you say, success can look different for different people. And I'm just so grateful that I'd say 90% of the long COVID symptoms have gone now. And I'm just
Yeah.
so happy that I can wake up and be, you know, there's no way I would have been doing this at 8 a.m., you know, previously. So it's just those feel like wins now for me.
I love that. That's great. And it's a great way to end the session as well, the first part of this. For the next part, we're actually talking about EFT and do a little EFT session. So for everyone listening in now, stay tuned. In a couple of days, you will have a little EFT session with Rachel.
Nice.
Thanks for joining me, Rachel. And
Thank
I'll
you so
talk to you
much.
soon.
Speak soon.
Bye.